Hello, welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the second half of Scorpio season. We've already had a lot going on. We've had the very intense new moon in Scorpio. We've had the Mars-Pluto opposition, which was very bombastic and more intense than the new moon itself. We've had Mercury entering Sagittarius, getting ready for his upcoming retrograde. We've already had a lot going on and it doesn't lighten up over the second half of Scorpio season. So I'll be reading today from the 7th of November until the 22nd of November when the sun moves into Sagittarius. Just setting the backdrop of what we've already been through. The sun is now at 15 to 16 degrees of Scorpio, so the midpoint of Scorpio season, astrological Beltane in the southern hemisphere, when the powers, potency, and fecundity of the earth is reaching its apex. Things are heating up, life is getting hotter, more productive, more abundant. It's a beautiful time of year to celebrate that abundance, to celebrate love, whether that's with yourself, friends, family, a partner. We have Pluto sitting on that 29 degree of Capricorn very, very soon to move into Aquarius for the very last time for his 20-ish year stint in Aquarius on the 20th of November, which I'll be talking about later. That's really the highlight of this whole Scorpio season. I think it's even more poignant than that Mars opposition. So let's get right into it. I will start with the 9th of November. Our first major movement is asteroid Astraea entering Scorpio. Astraea was the ancient Greek goddess of divine justice, balance. She was the last of the gods to leave the earth. She was clinging on to the hope that mankind would become more righteous and honorable, but she increasingly became more disgusted with what she saw with regards to how humankind was progressing with their greed, their discompassionate nature, and their lust for power. And so finally let go and joined the rest of the gods in the heavens. So she talks to us about divine justice, divine harmony, divine balance. She also speaks to us of the things we can cling on to. And she also tells us about that, with inverted commas, golden age in reality, but also when we can be hoping for something like that, which is not a practical reality. It was said in the myth that the day that Astraea returned to the earth was the day that she would bring that golden age back with her. In the sign of Scorpio, this is really that divine justice and weighing up of our deep, potent emotions. In Libra, she was really working with, in particular, the South Node and that solar eclipse, the new moon in Libra on the 3rd of October, and really teaching us about how to reharmonize, rebalance, realign, and working with the South Node, how to let go. Now that she's moved through that and into Scorpio, we can kind of do that deeper work to purge for that balance, purge for that justice, and we can begin digging deep to really empower us. And because Scorpio is a sign of truth, perhaps in Scorpio she's telling us that it is only through truth and justice that we can step into the golden age, the new earth, the new era, whatever that means to you. There's really no holding false hope in the sign of Scorpio. Scorpio cuts to the bone of an issue and there's no tiptoeing. With Scorpio, though it is complex and there are layers and it is a sign of things that are hidden and things that are secret. With Astraea moving through Scorpio now, it's almost as if the things that are hidden and secret that are not in alignment with divine, impartial, true justice can no longer sustain. And that is what we will be dealing with thematically until she moves into Sagittarius about mid-January next year. Also on the 9th, we have asteroid Vesta conjunct the South Node in Libra. So again, still quite relationship-y themes. Libra is the sign of alignment, balance, right relationship. And when Vesta, the goddess of the hearth, the inner fire, the goddess of dedication, to sacredness. She's telling us dedicate yourself to balance in Libra. But conjunct the South Node, it's what must you release to move on from for your energetic and soul advancement that will help you with your alignment. Also on the 9th of November going into the 10th, we've got some interesting energies going on with lovely Venus traveling through Sagittarius. So she's squaring Neptune at 27 degrees retrograde of Pisces on the 10th. What this is this Venus whose desires are very expansive. She's fiery, she's explorative. She wants to expand her heart, literally, because Venus is the heart. And she's attracted to the new. She's attracted to seeking, traveling, philosophies, learning. With this square to Neptune, she's meeting the great dissolver. Neptune is the nebulous. Neptune is the fog. This could be meeting something uncertain, unknown. The lines could be blurred. There could be a fogginess or a murkiness. This could be subconscious drives or patterns that are coming up that we're not quite aware of. It's kind of like on our periphery. Neptune, as the higher octave of Venus, is almost challenging Venus to release something, because generally Neptune does ask us to let go, to accept, and to go with the flow. And with Venus traveling along her heart's adventure, it's like Neptune saying here, in order for you to follow that adventure, something must be dissolved, let go, in order to push through and progress. It's almost as if this heart space, this desire is made cosmic through that letting go. And it's a connection to this higher power, because Neptune is our oneness, our wholeness as an earth, a solar system, a galaxy, a cosmos. It is the unity of all beings, all things. And with Venus being challenged in this square aspect here, we could feel that there could be something bigger or higher that we don't know what it is. It's nebulous. It's something we can't put our finger on. It's intangible. But by releasing expectation, because Sagittarius can be a very expectant, idealistic, overly optimistic sign, by releasing that and allowing your heart to go with the flow, that is the best way to move through this unknownness. The other interesting energy that we have in play here is the galactic center. So the galactic center sits between 26 and 28 degrees of Sagittarius. It does fluctuate. Normally, astrologers tend to place it at about 27 degrees. It is literally the black hole in the center of our galaxy. And it's this massively, colossally, energetically powerful physical phenomenon that has to do with the rotation of our galaxy. It's the energetic center of our galaxy. And it's in astrology, it can represent the energetic center that we revolve around or aim towards in terms of our evolution. When a planet or point interacts with the galactic center, the energy is not only magnified and given this huge weight of purpose and potential. This is all Sagittarius themes, but that energy is actually sent further, sent higher. Now, Neptune has been at 27 degrees for a while now because of its retrograde period, and it won't come back here again after it turns direct and moves off this 27 degree in February this year. So it has been playing with this 27 degree point squaring the galactic center. And overall, this is this expansion of spirituality, because Neptune in Pisces is our spiritual or energetic, or whatever that means to you, journey put in front of the judge, in front of this galactic center. And it's saying, what can be expanded upon? What can we do to go further? What can we do to give this more cosmic energy that is in alignment with your highest good, our highest good? It's kind of reassuring, because the galactic center is the most powerful point, and it's more powerful than Neptune. And it's nearly saying that anything uncertain, anything that has that fogginess, murkiness, blurred lines, blurred boundaries, whatever this is, it will fade. It will dissolve because there is a higher purpose. There is a big direction, even if we can't see it or know it right now. Venus is conjunct this galactic center at 27 degrees. It will be exact on the 9th of November, but it does come into orb on the 8th and it will exit its orb after the 10th. I'm feeling more, because this is Sagittarius, it's very much more tied in with our belief systems, ideologies, and it's teaching us how or if they are connected to our heart and they are connected to our values. And there can be some kind of uncertainty around this with this square to Neptune, but with Venus conjunct the galactic center, it's this massive heart alignment, and it's could even manifest as this huge attraction to the unknown, this huge attraction to exploring and expansion. And this could be in any of these Sagittarius fields, such as language, culture, philosophy, religion, any of these things, travel, foreign cultures. Whenever Venus moves across the galactic center, she is leveled up. The heart is made cosmic. And it's almost as if by connecting with the heart and by connecting with love, it's really honing in and emphasizing that we are connected to source, the cosmos, the universe, whatever that means to you. It's through the heart that we can expand. It all starts in the heart. And this is a very beneficial, very positive, uplifting, hopeful energy. It's a realignment with heart. It's a realignment with purpose, and it's optimism and it's hope. And Sagittarius is the most positive, optimistic sign that you can get. It will always look on the bright side, sometimes to its detriment. Between the 8th and 10th of November, this can be a very beautiful, uplifting, hopeful energy to tap into at this time. After her huge soul expansion, Venus will enter Capricorn on the 12th of November. This is her putting her heart into the practical areas of her life, her structures, into her career, her ambition. This is making your heart the boss. Literally, Capricorn is a boss. And it's allowing yourself to integrate these big, even cold, hard ambitions, allowing them to integrate with your heart space. In Capricorn, Venus is more serious, more committed, more authoritative. She can take relationships and relating with people much more seriously. A thing to be mindful of as Venus moves through Capricorn is being conscious of not putting too much restriction and limitation on your heart, on your desire. Boundaries are incredibly useful and we need them, but Capricorn can tend to go over the top, and particularly with the heart and with Venus, it can just feel safer to put those barriers up. So the lesson with Venus moving through Capricorn is to have them up in a healthy way, but to really allow your heart to integrate into all of the structures of your life in an equally healthy way. Now, on the 13th of November, Mercury makes its first of 3 squares to Saturn retrograde. So I'm going to go off on a tangent here and talk about Mercury's upcoming retrograde period. It's actually a rather more important retrograde period than he usually has, because he's activating this ongoing Jupiter-Saturn square. Just to touch on this very first aspect he makes that's activating the square, 13th of November, he's at 12 degrees of Sagittarius, squaring Saturn retrograde at 12 degrees of Pisces. He will then go on to oppose Jupiter retrograde on the 18th of November for the first time. They will be at 18 degrees at that stage. So what he's doing here is he's creating the formation of a T-square with Saturn at the apex by moving across this point backwards and forwards, because of his retrograde period that will begin on the 26th of November, end on the 16th of December, but then he won't be out of his shadow zone until the beginning of January. So this is a good solid 2 months of this Jupiter-Saturn square being activated. So that's why his retrograde period is a little bit more ramped up this year. This Jupiter-Saturn square is an ongoing energy. The first aspect occurred on the 20th of August, and the second aspect will be occurring, on Christmas Day, and it will be at the same time that Mercury makes his third opposition to Jupiter and his third square to Saturn. So he is directly involved with this second Jupiter-Saturn square. If you're still with me, what does this all mean? This means is that this ongoing thing that we as a collective have right now about the parts of society that need to contract and the parts of society that need to expand. And this could mean any number of different things for you on a personal level. This will be in terms of our morals and belief systems around society, philosophy. It's facts versus truth. It's the nebulous unknown with Saturn in Pisces here versus the big talk of both Jupiter in Gemini and Mercury in Sagittarius. Both of these things can mean big talk, but is there anything behind the talk? And with Saturn thrown into the mix here in the sign of Pisces, which is all about the unknown and the blurred boundaries, there can be a very big sense here of a toing and a froing, of not knowing where you stand. And this is predominantly collectively, but this can also be working personally with you if anything in your chart's being activated, or you could just be very tapped into the energies. This is all in mutable signs. So the most important thing that we need to do if we feel like we're toing and froing and we're not sure and there's a tension or an urgency, but there's no movement. This is a T-square. It's a hard aspect. It's an inflexible configuration, but it's in the mutable signs of flexibility. And it's important to remain fluid, remain adaptable, and remain flexible, and to accept that you're not going to know the whole picture for a while. By working with the information that you have, that you know is true, which is Mercury in Sagittarius and Jupiter in Gemini, you can work towards building something for your highest good, whatever that may mean to you. This is the Saturn in Pisces influence. So this energy will be at its peak between the 25th and 27th of December, but this is a flavor that is peppered through all of November and all of December, because Mercury is flitting backwards and forwards, triggering these points consistently. And Mercury in Sagittarius has a very interesting relationship with Jupiter in Gemini at this time. The interesting thing is that they are in each other's home sign, which is called mutual reception. Mercury rules Gemini and Jupiter is in Gemini. Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Mercury is in Sagittarius. So they're in each other's territory. It's like this constant conversation, this phone call every single day to check up and be like, what's the status at the moment over there in my home? And then the Jupiter calls back and says, yep, this is what's going on. What's the status over there in my home? And then Mercury gives him the information. Keeping the dialogue going is one of the more important things. You can feel quite overwhelmed with these energies because they're very high-paced, fast-moving, non-stop kind of energies. And with Saturn in Pisces at the apex of this ongoing configuration, it can feel like a block or a restriction, or something is just saying, no, you must stop, you must rest, you must let go, this is not possible, however that comes up for you. But because he's in Pisces, this could be helpful. It could be helpful to stop and sit in the energies and remember to rest your brain, rest your nervous system, and to not be on edge needing to know all of the answers. And it's not going to last forever. The tension and the urgency will move on as these aspects separate. This square energy between Jupiter and Saturn will not be finalized until mid-June next year. They will both be in different signs then. This will be in Cancer and Aries by that stage. That's a whole different story. The point is that whatever is coming up and being triggered now could very well be linked to what was coming up and being triggered on the 20th of August around that time, in terms of needing to expand, needing to explore ideas, information, connections, community. but being restricted or held back by something that could have been out of your control, by something that you couldn't put your finger on. And again, the gift these mutable signs give us is the skill to navigate. I'm just getting the skill to navigate without necessarily knowing where you're going. But the most important thing is that even though everyone in your life might not be on the same page, and this is collectively as well, we could be more aware of the interconnectedness and the ties that we all have, because this is the planet of locality and community, Mercury, in the sign of global, of world, of travel, Sagittarius, and it's vice versa with Jupiter in Gemini. It could be confusing, but it's through this that we're all going to get onto the same page, even if we don't quite know where we're all heading yet. This could be community understanding the wider context, and this could be leaders understanding the community. It could be the parts of yourself wanting to expand and enlarge and explore, especially in terms of ideas and connections. First, having to integrate Mercury, the reworking and reviewing, because of the retrograde, of these personal truth systems, of these personal beliefs, ideologies, and philosophies. They're up for review with this Mercury retrograde in a way that perhaps we haven't had before. Mercury is about the facts, and so is Gemini. Jupiter is not so much about the facts. Jupiter is about whatever truth means to it. And truth can be very subjective sometimes. So this could even be about finding the truth eventually. And it's the processes that we're going to eventually reach that point. Overall, it could be quite confused and muddled, but if we're using these energies consciously, it's really about a mind expansion, because Mercury is the mind and how we synthesize, analyze, interpret things. And because he's making these connections to these outer planets, he's also connecting to Chiron as well through his retrograde journey. It's very much a mind expansion. It's a mind up leveling. It's about having a vision and about these higher parts of self coming into your mental consciousness. There could be a lot of ideologies thrown around at this time. There could be a lot of dogmatic or pedagogic themes coming up at this time. The most important thing is to stick to your facts. This is Jupiter and Gemini's lesson. It's about accepting what is simply not in your grasp, which is Saturn in Pisces, even if that means stopping or waiting or pausing, even if you feel stuck, even if it feels like a block or a restriction. Saturn is about timing. It's obviously just not the time yet, but it will come. And it's about bringing these lessons back home to self to really expand how your mind works and how you view, see, analyze the world around you and also yourself within that world. It will be about perspective as well, changes of perspectives, reviewing of perspectives. It's a recalculation process, and it's ongoing for the next 2 months. But it is most strong at the end of December. So I'll speak more of it in my Capricorn season video. So enough about that lot. What have we got next? The full moon in Taurus. This is very, very, very sparkly because it will be conjunct Uranus. And the sun, therefore, will be in opposition to Uranus retrograde. That won't perfect until the day after the new moon. So we are on the 16th of November. It's very interesting because the ruler of this lunation, Venus, is actually in a square aspect to the North Node and South Node. So Venus, remember, is now in Capricorn. She's at 5 degrees and she'll be squaring the North Node and the South Node during this lunation. And this is more prominent because she's the ruler of this full moon. Whatever culmination or illumination, whatever comes to fruition or climax, is tied into this piece of your karmic or energetic or soul puzzle that must be put into place. With the square to the nodes, it's what we need to release despite our fears of releasing, because Capricorn and Capricornian people are here to really work through any restrictions and limitations they have that are fear-based. So it's about releasing whatever we need to release, because she is also ruling this south node that she's squaring in order to step into her true identity. And I'm getting this is really about releasing fear. This is the lesson. It's a karmic or energetic or soul lesson, whichever word vibes most with you. And because she's very solid, she's more than stable in Capricorn. There is a lesson in being able to remain in authority, despite perhaps letting go of things that could make her feel vulnerable. Because it's a full moon, it could be that any boundaries, limitations, fears of the heart, Venus is the heart, it could be broken through because this moon is conjunct Uranus, which is freedom. This is the shake-up. It's interesting because Uranus's journey through Taurus has been quite paradoxical, because Uranus is change, unstoppable change. And Taurus is a fixed sign, the first fixed sign. And Earth, solid, stable, fixed sign, does not want change. So it could be highlighted at this time, this unstoppable force meeting the immovable object. And the tension is really highlighted of this shaking up of foundations, the shaking up of security, the shaking up of stability, things that you value. This could be finances, this could be love, this could be around self-worth and self-love. It could be a revolution, Uranus, of self-worth and self-love. But there will be breakthroughs. 16th of November, there will be breakthroughs, especially because this is the date that Saturn stations direct. So station dates are normally a bit tenuous, because it's like a planet putting the brakes on, slowing, stop, gearbox out of reverse, puts it into forward motion. It's that whoop, whoop, to and fro, changing direction. So it could be a bit of a wobble, tenuous kind of a day, especially because Saturn is in Pisces, which, as I've been talking about, is about this nebulous, unknowable, intangible energy. But it could finally feel, or start to feel, like whatever blocks or restrictions in terms of being able to flow within the structures of your life, or being able to flow in general, could be starting to melt away as Saturn stations direct. And it could be that this liminal space between Saturn retrograde stopping and turning around and going direct could be allowing for this breakthrough on the full moon even. And because Saturn has been working on what is truly functioning in our lives for our highest good, and it has been lifting the veil on any illusions, taking off any rose-colored glasses or beer goggles that you could have about these important structural, practical, 3D worldly things in your life. Whatever we've been moving through in that process was intensified during this retrograde journey, because whenever a planet is retrograde, it is actually closer to the Earth, so it's closer to home, it is more internal. It's now allowing us to move forward in a much more realistic and practical way. And with that Pisces energy, it's making our dreams, our visions, energy, spirituality, much more tangible in a way that functions well, which may not have been the case before this retrograde period. And because he's obviously one corner of this Jupiter square Saturn ongoing background activation, this kind of does change the dynamic of this square aspect, and it could feel less restrictive, less blocked, less unknowable and nebulous, and we could be starting to get more of an idea now of where we're going, but maybe not quite yet, because Jupiter is still retrograde in Gemini and there is still more ongoing activations with that Mercury. But nonetheless, overall, Saturn stationing direct does lend itself more to forward movement. Now, on the 16th of November, we've got a little aspect here I'd like to talk about. We've got asteroid Hygeia conjunct Eris. Both are retrograde. This will be at 24 degrees 39 minutes of the sign Aries. This is the second of three. The first was back on the 17th of June, and the last one will be on the 10th of January. This conjunction is really cool because Hygeia, she was the goddess of cleanliness, hygiene, and good health. And she was the goddess of these things through prevention, through healthy practice. And she was the daughter of the god of medicine, Asclepius, and Epione, who was the personification of remedy, recovery, and care. She was a health goddess of soothing and alleviation of pain. So when she moves through a sign and touches points, she's cleaning up, purifying, and even preventing disease or unhealthiness in any aspect, depending on which sign she's moving through. So she actually went retrograde in Taurus and has moved back into Aries. So in Taurus, she was really reviewing our physical senses and our healthy practices around self-love and self-worth, and even literally our physical body, care of our physical body, food, exercise, etc. And now she's moving backwards through Aries, she's cleaning up or rectifying, mending our sense of a healthy identity. And what and how do we identify with self, and is that itself healthy? So conjuncting Eris here in Aries, it's because she was the goddess of discord, whose primary story was that she wasn't invited to a wedding and then basically caused a domino effect that changed the world as we know it out of spite. But it was all because she was excluded. So one of her main themes can be about exclusion or being left out, not just about chaos and discord itself. So in Aries, it's what parts of our identity have we excluded, isolated, left out to our detriment that is causing us discord and harmony in ways that perhaps we don't know. And Hygeia is how can we integrate, connect with, merge with, heal with what must be dealt with for a more healthy, wholesome sense of identity. And this is really highlighted as Hygeia is now making this second conjunction on the 16th of November. It can also affect healthy ways of assertion and action without being aggressive or overly angry, because it can, Eris in Aries can speak to this bottled anger that could need, with Hygeia, lancing or draining in order to be able to heal. Now, on the 19th of November, Mercury makes its first trine to Chiron retrograde in Aries. This will be at 19 degrees. Mercury, 19 degrees of Sagittarius, Chiron, 19 degrees of Aries. It's interesting because this trine to Chiron is the last aspect Mercury makes before he goes retrograde, and it is then the first aspect that he remakes as he goes backwards. So it's like these are the first two relay batons that Mercury picks up in his retrograde period. And it's the strongest flavor, I think, of this whole retrograde period, coloring the way that he integrates with this Jupiter-Saturn square, as I just dove into before. And Chiron is overall about healing. It's very interesting because in his last retrograde period, back in mid-July, into the end of July, August, he also trined Chiron 3 times back then as well. So he was trining Chiron from Leo, and now he's trining Chiron 3 times from Sagittarius. And these are the fiery, intuitive parts of ourself because he's in Sagittarius. And it's about making our brain waves, our thought processes less linear and restricted and more intuitive and more about tapping into our intuition. And this would be very healing and opening because this is Chiron, and in the sign of Aries, it's about healing and bridging this sense of self-assertion, courage, identity. And Mercury in Sagittarius is really saying by tapping into our intuition and letting go of the dotting the I's and crossing the T's and doing everything by the facts that you see, and instead letting go of that and moving beyond that and allowing your intuition to really see what the meaning is of something. It's through that process that you could be learning to trust yourself, and that could be the healing that we get in this Chiron in Aries journey. It's trusting your senses, trusting your intuition. And that could be lending itself in a beautiful way to healing this sense of identity of, oh, this is who I am. I can do this. I have this knowledge. I have this fiery intuition. And on the same day, the sun will be trining Neptune retrograde, now at 27 degrees of Scorpio. So the sun is nearly done its journey through the sign of Scorpio. And this is another beautiful, harmonious aspect. This is the god of the expansive oceans, the connected cosmos, the unity of love and oneness, and whatever spirituality means to you personally, the god of spirituality as well, blending with the sun in Scorpio, which is about our intense emotional journey and how our ego, sun, ego, and conscious self has been moving through this real, even tumultuous, even dark night of the soul journey through Scorpio, which is transformative and empowering. And the trine to Neptune is saying that this is all connected to your greatest good. You are connected to love. You are connected to source, whatever that means for you. Everything is happening ultimately for the uplifting of your vibration and for your connectedness to inner love, higher love, cosmic love, however you choose to view that. Now, the big day that we've all been waiting for, that all of the astrologers have not been shutting up about. Pluto enters Aquarius on the 20th of November, 7:30 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Pluto will not now leave Aquarius for 20 years. It is finally leaving Capricorn, and it is entering this rebellious, this unique, this diverse, this different, radical sign of Aquarius. And as an outer planet, Pluto is more tied up with the collective. Not that it doesn't affect us personally, but it is more obvious to see, unless you're experiencing a personal transit, that is, in the collective. And his first forays into Aquarius over the last 2 years have really heralded an extremely cerebral time. It's about science and technology and the ways that we are connected, how we connect, because he is about transformation. And Aquarius is representative of humanity and the collective itself. This is transformation of humanity. Full stop. Whenever Pluto moves through a sign, whatever that sign represents, it is always changed. It is always irrevocably changed. And of course, it always changes society and the collective. It's particularly significant in Aquarius because Aquarius itself is representative of the collective and humanity. And this could mean power, Pluto, to humanity. It could mean empowerment, but it can also mean destruction. Astrologers shouldn't fearmonger and shouldn't say this is going to happen or that's going to happen. But we all know the power of Pluto. He's the lord of the underworld. He deals with death and destruction. And we could see parts of society or ways of living that will become no more because it's no longer needed, because we will advance. And Aquarius is an incredibly futuristic sign. It's a sign of hopes, aspirations, inventions, inventiveness, innovation, newness. There could be more and more new things that are giving power to the people. Aquarius also represents politics. So with Pluto moving through Aquarius, we could see more big, intense, powerful political shifts. Politics could be very much more in the limelight or more pronounced in terms of power and wealth and how that's distributed and the way that politics is all tied into that. Pluto in Aquarius is reminiscent of the freedom, equality, and fraternity of humanity. It was actually discovered at about the time of both the French and the American revolutions, and it was in the sign of Aquarius. So this is ideas and ideals, these very pure ideals that are intended for the betterment of all. Everyone is included. everyone, even the different, even the disenfranchised, even the disconnected parts of society, everyone is included. We are all part of a global community. With Pluto and Aquarius, group mentality could be very empowering at this time and very much more prevalent. The scales could be prone to tip in terms of mob mentality. That's the other side of the coin. Because though these ideals of connectedness and equanimity are all well and good, if we don't remain true and authentic to self, leaning into that polarity of Leo to balance the intensity of these strong Aquarian themes, if we don't remain true to our individual selves, it can be easy to slip and be swept up into the collective. But that's on a negative scale what Pluto and Aquarius can be. It can be power to a collective, turning to power given to a mob who has a mob mentality. On a much more positive note, this is utter brilliance of mind, depth of mind, deep intelligence, and evolving consciousness. Obviously, AI is playing into this hugely. We're going to see absolutely incredible things that we never would have thought possible. We could discover otherworldly things like other life forms on Earth, other land forms on Earth, even aliens, if you believe that's a possibility. This lends very much to the individual becoming much more conscious of their place in the collective and their impact and their contribution to humanity. And this can be an incredibly transformative experience for the individual and the collective, and ultimately empowering for all as well. Community and the collective in the world could become more aware, more open-minded to things that were previously seen as different or weird. Astrology is ruled by Aquarius and kind of Sagittarius as well, but most people say that astrology is a very Aquarian thing. I like to think of it as a blend of both. Anyway, there could also be a shift of the recognition of people or things that were seen as outsiders or outliers or even abnormal. And there could be more unity consciousness and more acceptance. And if you yourself have felt like an outsider or isolated, which could very well be the case since you're listening to an astrology podcast, you could feel more recognized. You could feel more included for who you are. And this includes marginalized groups, which can be more Piscean, really, but it's also applicable to Aquarius because it's people who are different, particularly as well people who have elected to be different, being more seen and accepted and respected rather than ostracized. And there's really a transformative theme here about the open-mindedness and acceptance of all human beings. So there's just a couple of last little aspects to talk about after that giant spiel on Pluto and Aquarius on the 21st of November. Asteroid Estrella, remember, she's just entered into Scorpio, will conjunct Juno in Scorpio, Queen of the Gods. This is on the 21st of November. This is the bringing of deep, true justice, divine justice and balance to any agreements or contracts or relationships that we have. This could be bringing divine justice for your sovereignty. This could be a return of or a coming of that golden age that I spoke of at the beginning in terms of sovereignty and empowerment, particularly in terms of what we have agreed to, any shared resources, commitments, relationships, etc. This is a lovely blend of divine feminine energies. Then on the 22nd, the sun will finally enter Sagittarius. And as I mentioned in the first part of Scorpio season, he will sextile rather than square Pluto on his way in, given that Pluto has just moved into Aquarius, into an air sign, and the sun is moving into a fire sign. So this is a really favorable aspect. Everything that the sun has been through in this intense, emotional, transformative journey through Scorpio is now lending itself to this higher purpose, higher meaning, expansive journey that the sun will now go through in Sagittarius. So let's go to the tarot now. I'm again using the Dark Goddess Tarot by Ellen Lorenzi Prince. And the card that I pulled is the Eight of Swords. Very cerebral, as we've been talking about. In this deck, Ms. Lorenzi Prince has called the swords suit air, because air is all about our systems, mental processes, communication, ideas, etc. The goddess that she has chosen for the Eight of Air is the Hopi goddess Angus Nasontaka, and I'm only going to pronounce that once. So firstly, I acknowledge with respect and gratitude the Hopi peoples, both past and present, as well as their traditional lands and ways of life. It is my intention to humbly learn from what their history and culture has to give to us today. So it is, and thank you. So before I go into the symbology of Pro Mother, I will just touch on the general traditional meaning of the Eight of Swords. I would just also like to note that while I was shuffling this deck, the Two of Cups, Lorelei, flew out of my hands. She was the card I pulled for the first half of Scorpio season. So it's really iterating that we're still in that intense, deep, emotional Scorpio flavor of union with self, union with others, how we merge and how we are intimate and thereby empowered with our own emotions. But now onto the Eight of Swords, which isn't really everyone's favorite card. It's about feeling restricted by circumstances or not being able to prevail over difficulties. The traditional image is of a woman with her hands tied behind her back and blindfolded, surrounded by swords stabbed in the ground all around her, kind of like bars of a cage. And the point of the image is that her hands are actually bound very lightly, and she has the ability to pull free and then pull the blindfold off and then walk out of this cage of swords, because there's gaps in between the swords, obviously. So she has all of the power to leave the situation that she's in. Apropos of that, just quickly, the eights in tarot are actually a very powerful number. Eight is a power number. It's the symbol of infinity. It's very transformative. It is about cycles. It is about infinity. It's about the power of the mind, which is very Pluto in Aquarius. Power, Pluto of the mind, Aquarius. And it's about all of the limiting thoughts, self-stories, or even beliefs that are keeping you blocked or restricted, or this over-analysis or this inner critic or even inner control freak here, overthinking something so much that you're actually paralyzed with fear and anxiety that you can't get yourself out of the loop to free yourself, even though the keys are in your grasp. It can be about the pessimism and fear that we are living through within a kind of a self-made mental prison, self-made mental chains. It can be about self-sabotage and victim consciousness, about feeling weak or feeling helpless, unable to move forward, feeling voiceless and disempowered, even feeling isolated, stuck, cornered. This could be very Uranus and Taurus. It can be about empowering yourself to break free of all of that, because sometimes you can't see a solution or a way out or the reality of a situation while you're in the middle of it. Being so caught in a loop. It's like one of those automatic race cars on a toy track, and it just goes around and around and around and around, and you don't know where the off switch is. Just flick the car off the tracks and it'll stop. The cycle will stop. And it's about being tied to these outdated energies that are holding you back, that it's time to release, remove, and let go of, because the power to change is always within you. And especially with this Uranus in Taurus and Pluto moving into Aquarius, we always have freedom of choice. We can choose to stay in this loop, or we can choose to leave. It's all up to personal choice. Being too wrapped up in your mind, in yourself, in your situation, you can lose your connection and grounding in reality. And you can sometimes need a little splash in the face with water to step out of this interior absorption and really step into reality, get some fresh air. This is an air card. It can be about the power that we step into to release ourselves, to give ourselves freedom, to get that fresh start, to get the fresh air, and empowering ourselves to really, rather than allowing that incredible force of mind to keep us trapped, but harnessing that power and allowing us to use that to benefit us in the best ways possible for our highest good. Those are generally the themes about the Eight of Swords. It can be a little bit of a slap in the face saying, you put this blindfold on yourself, what are you refusing to see? With Pluto moving into Aquarius, he is the truth, and Aquarius is freedom. So the truth can set you free, even if it's scary, because this Eight of Swords is about our fears and anxieties, and it can be scary. It can be easier to live in this little bubble you've built for yourself rather than step out and step into your power. It can be terrifying. The mind is such a strong force that it can really exaggerate. There's a lot of Sagittarius in the air already. It's exaggeration. Can really exaggerate or exacerbate any little fears or anxieties that we have into this huge overdressed idea that it's going to be so hard that it's just not worth it. The Eight of Swords is telling us that it is worth it, because by stepping out, you will be stepping into your power. The Crow Mother here is named as the Hopi goddess of initiation, which is interesting given that I've been saying that Pluto is sitting on the threshold, the 29-degree and now the 0-degree. So whenever a planet changes signs, they will make a connection with Pluto. Everyone has to pass him at the doorway and get a stamp on their wrist before they enter into their next stage in the journey here. He's empowering us through being able to face our fears. And in Aquarius and with the Eight of Swords, it's addressing the fears that our mind has imposed on us that aren't really real. And the caption in the guidebook to this deck says, take responsibility to break through restriction. The Crow Mother initiated the children of a tribe into becoming an adult. So it's about stepping out of something that is either immature or past its use by date and stepping into what is now the right path. Because everything behind you doesn't fit anymore. The Crow Mother taught the proper way to live in community. And this is also very Aquarian as well. It's how we connect to each other responsibly in an empowered way. But mostly her link to the Eight of Air, Eight of Swords, is about facing fear, facing pain, accepting knowledge, and accepting the shattering of illusion to progress, move forward into the next stage of your journey. And that is breaking out of the Ring of Swords that you can easily walk through. It's not easy. Just because I say you have all the power, you have all of the choice, it doesn't make making that choice easy. But it's about being aware that you can. You really, really can. You can do it responsibly. You can do it in an empowered way. You can do it bravely. You can do it crying. You can do it angrily. You can do it screaming. However you do it, the point is that you can. You have the power. You have the ability to break out of whatever mental prison you've put yourself in. And the freedom that you get from that will be something like you've never experienced before. And it's almost like you won't know yourself. It's like taking the blindfold off and blinking in the sunlight. How long has it been since you've seen the light? How long has it been since you've been able to face the truth, face reality? And how liberating it can be from finally facing it and then jolly moving on, getting it over with. Pluto is out of Capricorn. It's done. Nada, no more. Now we're stepping into our freedom and liberation with Pluto moving into Aquarius. Righto, that's it for the second half of Scorpio season. That was a wild ride. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate the time you take to listen to what I have to say. If you lasted this long, well done. And I will see you in my next video. I look forward to it.